Jake Morrison stood at the window of his office, looking out at the red sky of Kepler 442c. The wind howled outside, carrying dust and rocks that would kill a man in minutes. But Jake was not worried. He had built New Haven to survive anything. This planet could throw at them. The colony sat deep in a valley, surrounded by tall mountains that blocked the worst storms. Every building was made of thick metal and stone, buried halfway into the ground. The streets were covered with strong glass domes that could seal shut in seconds. This was not just a place to live. This was a fortress. Jake had been the colony leader for 5 years now. He came here with the first group of settlers, all of them knowing what they were getting into. Kepler 442c was one of the worst planets humans had ever tried to live on. The air was poison. The storms came without warning. The ground shook almost every day. Most people thought they were crazy to come here, but Jake knew better. This planet was perfect for what they needed. It was far from Earth, at the edge of human space. It was hard to attack because the planet itself would fight any invaders. And most important of all, it would make them strong. Lisa Grant walked into his office without knocking. She was the head engineer, the woman who had designed most of their defenses. Her clothes were dirty from working in the tunnels all morning. "The new gun batteries are ready," she said, sitting down in the chair across from his desk. "We now have 40 hidden positions around the colony. The aliens won't see them coming." Jake nodded. Lisa was the smartest person he knew when it came to building things. She had turned their entire valley into a weapon. Gun positions hidden in fake rocks. Missile launchers that looked like communication towers. Even the solar panels on the roofs could flip over to reveal laser cannons. "What about the tunnels?" Jake asked. "All connected now," Lisa replied with a smile. "Every building, every bunker, every storage room. We can move anywhere in the colony without going above ground. The main tunnel goes 15 kilometers out into the mountains. If we need to, we can disappear completely." The door opened again, and Ryan Clark walked in. He was the security chief, a big man with scars on his hands from years of fighting. He looked serious, which was normal for him. "We just got word from Earth," Ryan said. "The talks with the Zephyrians have failed. They're coming for us." Jake felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his face calm. They had known this day would come. The Zephyrian Empire was expanding, taking over human colonies one by one. New Haven was next on their list. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 2 weeks," Ryan said. Their fleet was last seen at the Proxima station. That's 4 jumps from here. Lisa leaned forward in her chair. "Are we really going to fight them?" "Their fleet has over 200 ships. We have 12 patrol boats and some orbital platforms." Jake stood up and walked to the window again. Outside, he could see colonists going about their daily work. Children playing in the protected courtyards. Families having dinner in the community halls. These were good people who had come here to build a new life. "We're not just going to fight them," Jake said quietly. "We're going to win." Ryan made a sound like he was choking. "Jake, I know we've prepared for this, but they have a whole fleet. We're just 50,000 people on a dead rock." Jake turned around and looked at his 2 closest friends. These were the people who had helped him build New Haven from nothing. They trusted him, and he would not let them down. "That's exactly what they think too," Jake said. "They see a small colony on a worthless planet. They don't know what we've really built here." He walked to his desk and pressed a button. The lights dimmed and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed the entire valley, but not the way it looked from above. This showed the real New Haven, the hidden guns, the underground factories, the secret tunnels that went deep into the planet's core. "We didn't just build a colony," Jake said. "We built a trap, Lisa stared at the hologram with wide eyes. Even she didn't know about all of it. Jake, this is incredible. But can we really stop a whole fleet? We don't need to stop them, Jake replied. We just need to make them wish they never came here. Ryan was studying the display, his soldier's mind already working out the tactics. The planet's magnetic field will mess up their sensors. They won't see the hidden positions until it's too late. And if they try to land troops? Lisa asked. Jake smiled for the first time that day. Then they'll find out why we chose to live on a planet that tries to kill us every day. We know how to survive here. They don't. The three of them spent the rest of the day going over their plans. Every colonist had a job to do when the attack came. The farmers would become gunners. The teachers would run the communication systems. Even the children had safe places to go and ways to help Dot as the sun set, painting the sky an even deeper red. Jake walked through the colony streets. People nodded to him as he passed. They were not afraid. They were ready. Doctor, Amanda Brooks stopped him near the medical center. She was young but brilliant, the colony's chief scientist and doctor. Jake, I've been working on something, she said quietly. The bacteria here on the planet. I think I can modify them to be harmful to Zephyrian biology, but safe for humans. Jake raised his eyebrows. Biological warfare? Self-defense, Amanda corrected. Their armor is strong, but it has to let air in and out. If we can get the right microorganisms into their life support systems, Do it, Jake said without hesitation. Whatever it takes to protect our people. That night, Jake stood on his balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, a Zephyrian fleet was coming to destroy everything they had built. The aliens thought they were attacking a helpless colony. They were wrong. They were about to make the biggest mistake in their empire's history. Fleet Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, watching the stars stream past as his fleet moved through hyperspace. 200 warships followed behind him, the largest force the Zephyrian Empire had sent against. A human target, it seemed like too much. The intelligence reports about New Haven were clear. 50,000 humans on a dead planet with minimal defenses. A dozen small patrol ships and some basic orbital platforms. The kind of target his fleet could destroy in an hour, but the High Command wanted to send a message. Humans had been causing problems in other sectors, winning battles they should have lost. The Empire needed to show them what happened when they resisted Zephyrian expansion. Vexstar was proud to be chosen for this mission. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire, defeating species far older and more advanced than humans. His tactical record was perfect. Not a single defeat in 20 years of warfare. Sub-Commander Krellinax approached the command platform. He was younger than Vexstar, with fewer scars on his dark blue skin. The junior officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, I've been reviewing the target data, Krellinax said carefully. Are we certain this colony requires our full fleet? Vexstar's 4 eyes narrowed as he looked at his subordinate. You question the wisdom of High Command? No, sir, Krellinax replied quickly. I just wonder if we might be needed elsewhere. The reports show this New Haven colony has almost no military value. That is exactly why we must destroy it completely. Vexstar said, Fear is a weapon, Sub-Commander. When other human colonies see what happened to New Haven, they will surrender without a fight. The truth was that Vexstar agreed with his subordinate. 200 ships against one small colony was massive overkill. But he also understood politics. The Empire was frustrated with human resistance. They wanted a demonstration of power that would end all future problems. Krellinax nodded and returned to his station. Vexstar turned back to the tactical display, showing his fleet's formation. The Crimson Talon led the way, followed by 50 heavy cruisers, 100 destroyers, and 50 support ships. enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. The Zephyrians had built their empire through overwhelming force. When they found a new species, they offered two choices: join the empire or be destroyed. Most chose to join. Those who chose to fight rarely lasted more than a few days. Humans were different, though. They had surprised everyone by actually winning some battles. Their ships were smaller, and their technology was simpler, but they fought with a desperation that made them dangerous. Still, they had never faced a fleet like this one. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Imperial Intelligence," reported Communications Officer Zeldok. "Put it through," Vexstar ordered. The hologram of Admiral Vex Moore appeared on the bridge. The old warrior's skin was pale with age, but his eyes were still sharp. "Commander Vexstar," the Admiral said, "I trust your fleet is ready for the operation?" "Yes, Admiral. We should reach the target system in 10 standard hours." "Good. Remember, this is not just about one colony. The entire galaxy is watching. Show them what happens when humans resist the Empire." "Understood, sir. What about prisoners?" The Admiral's expression grew cold. "Take only what you need for intelligence purposes. The colony must be completely destroyed as an example." The transmission ended, and Vexstar felt a slight unease. He was a warrior, not a butcher. But orders were orders, and the Empire's expansion was more important than his personal feelings. He walked to the observation deck, where he could see his fleet spread out in formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering, armed with plasma cannons and gravitic missiles. The humans had nothing that could stand against such power. "Fleet status report," he called out as he returned to the bridge. "All ships ready for combat, sir," replied Tactical Officer Morgic. "Weapons charged, shields at full power. The humans won't know what hit them." Vexstar studied the intelligence files one more time. New Haven was located on Kepler 442c, a planet with severe environmental problems. Toxic storms, radiation bursts, and unstable geology. Why humans would choose to live in such a place was beyond him. The planet's magnetic field and mineral deposits would interfere with detailed scans, but that was a minor inconvenience. The fleet's sensors were powerful enough to see through most natural interference. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual readings from the target system," reported sensor specialist Nex Rao. Vexstar moved to the sensor station. "What kind of readings?" "The planet's electromagnetic field is stronger than expected. It might affect our targeting system slightly." "How much of an effect?" "Perhaps 10% reduction in sensor accuracy. Nothing that would impact the mission." Vexstar nodded. It was still massive overkill, even with reduced sensor accuracy. The humans would have no way to hide from his fleet. He thought about the battle to come. The orbital bombardment would destroy the surface installations in minutes. Any human ships that tried to fight would be swept aside like insects. Ground forces would mop up any survivors hiding in bunkers. By this time tomorrow, New Haven would be a crater, and the human resistance would be broken. Other colonies would see the footage and surrender immediately, rather than face the same fate. "Sir, dropping out of hyperspace in 1 hour," announced the navigation officer. "All hands to battle stations," Vexstar ordered. "Prepare for immediate combat upon arrival." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. These were experienced warriors who had fought in dozens of campaigns. They knew their jobs and trusted their commander as the fleet prepared to drop. Into normal space, Vexstar felt the familiar excitement of battle approaching. Soon he would add another victory to his record, another conquered world to the Empire's glory. He had no idea that he was about to face the most dangerous enemy the Zephyrian Empire had ever encountered. Not because the humans were stronger or had better technology, but because they had done something no other species had ever tried. They had turned an entire planet into a weapon. The countdown reached 0, and the Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. 200 warships appeared in perfect formation, ready to destroy a small human colony. What they found waiting for them would change everything. "Sir?" called out the sensor officer, his voice filled with confusion. "I'm detecting multiple contacts around the planet, more than the intelligence reports indicated." Vexstar frowned as he looked at the display. Something was wrong. The readings showed more defensive positions than there should be, but it was too late to change plans now. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "Begin the assault." The fleet commander had made his decision. He would discover very soon that it was the worst mistake of his life. The alarm started screaming across New Haven the moment the Zephyrian fleet appeared on the sensors. Jake Morrison ran through the underground tunnels toward the main command center, his boots echoing off the metal walls. Captain Sam Rodriguez was already at his station when Jake arrived. The military officer's face was grim as he watched the tactical display. 200 red dots filled the screen, each one representing an enemy warship. "They brought everything they had," Sam said, without looking away from the display. "Our patrol ships are already pulling back to defensive positions." Jake nodded. Their 12 small ships were no match for the Zephyrian fleet in open combat. But that was not the plan anyway. How long until they reach attack range? 20 minutes, maybe less. They're moving fast. All around the command center, colonists worked at their stations. These were not professional soldiers, just ordinary people who had trained for this moment. Farmers, teachers, mechanics, and shopkeepers who were now preparing to fight for their lives. Lisa Grant's voice came over the communication system from her position in engineering control. "All defensive systems are online. Hidden gun batteries are charged and ready. The planet's magnetic field is already messing with their sensors." Jake smiled grimly. The Zephyrians thought they were attacking a helpless colony. They were about to learn the truth. On the bridge of the Crimson Talon, Fleet Commander Vexstar was growing frustrated. His sensors were having trouble getting clear readings on the planet's surface. The electromagnetic interference was worse than expected. "I can see the main settlement," reported sensor specialist Nex Rao, "but the readings are unclear. The defensive installations appear minimal." "It doesn't matter," Vexstar replied. "Begin orbital bombardment. Target the population. Centers first." The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. The heavy cruisers positioned themselves for maximum firepower, while the destroyers spread out to prevent any escape. It was a standard assault pattern that had worked against dozens of other worlds. Vexstar raised his hand to give the attack. Order. At that moment, the planet's surface erupted in fire. Hidden gun positions that had looked like natural rock formations suddenly revealed themselves. Railgun batteries emerged from camouflaged bunkers, their barrels glowing with magnetic energy. What appeared to be communication towers flipped open to expose missile launchers. The first volley caught the Zephyrian fleet completely by surprise. Projectiles accelerated by the planet's own magnetic field slammed into the leading ships at incredible speed. 3 heavy cruisers exploded instantly, their shields overwhelmed by the unexpected attack. "Defensive fire!" Vexstar shouted. "All ships return fire!" But the humans had planned for this moment. As soon as the Zephyrian ships began shooting back, the gun batteries disappeared into their hidden positions. The aliens found themselves firing at empty rocks and fake buildings, while the real weapons moved to new locations. In the command center, Jake watched the battle with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. Enemy casualties are higher than expected. Ryan Clark grinned from his position at the tactical station. They never saw it coming. The magnetic interference is working perfectly. They can't get accurate targeting locks. On the surface, The hidden weapons continued their deadly work. Railguns fired from positions the aliens couldn't see, while missile batteries launched swarms of guided projectiles. The humans used the planet's own geology as cover, firing from valleys and caves that provided natural protection. But the Zephyrians were not helpless. Their return fire was devastating when it hit its targets. Several of the decoy installations were destroyed, sending clouds of debris into the air. However, these were exactly what they appeared to be: fake buildings designed to draw enemy fire. Away from the real defenses, Fleet Commander Vextar stared at his tactical display in shock. His fleet had already lost 15 ships, and they had barely been in combat for 10 minutes. This was impossible. Intelligence had said the colony had minimal defenses. "Sir, we're detecting additional weapon positions," reported Tactical Officer Morgek. "They're using the planet's magnetic field to hide their targeting signatures." "How many positions?" "Unknown, sir. Every time we destroy one, 2 more appear." Sub-Commander Krellinax approached the command platform, his face pale with worry. "Sir, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. This is not what we expected." Vextar's pride burned hot in his chest. He was fleet commander of the 3rd Assault Fleet. He had never retreated from any battle, and he would not start now against a primitive human colony. "All ships, close-range attack," he ordered. "Land-ground forces on the surface. We'll take this planet building by building if necessary." The order was a mistake, and Jake Morrison was waiting for it. As the Zephyrian dropships entered the atmosphere, Lisa Grant activated the colony's most innovative defense system. The planet's unstable crust had been carefully mapped over the years. Explosive charges had been placed at key geological stress points. When Lisa pressed the activation button, controlled earthquakes began shaking the landing zones. The artificial tremors were precisely calculated. They created zones of turbulence that made landing nearly impossible, while leaving the colony itself untouched. Zephyrian dropships found themselves fighting not just human weapons, but the planet itself. Dr. Amanda Brooks watched from her laboratory as the first alien shuttles struggled through the weaponized atmosphere. "Release the biological agents," she said quietly into her communicator. Hidden vents around the colony began releasing clouds of modified bacteria into the air. To humans, the organisms were harmless. But Amanda had spent years studying Zephyrian biology from captured equipment. Their environmental systems had critical weaknesses. The first wave of alien ground troops made it to the surface, but they were already in trouble. Their armor's life support systems began failing as microscopic. Invaders found ways through the seals. Warriors who had conquered a dozen worlds fell to enemies they could not even see. Captain Sam Rodriguez coordinated the surface defense from his underground bunker. "All units, remember your training. Let them come to us. Every street is a trap. Every building is a fortress." The Zephyrian soldiers advanced through the colony's outer districts, expecting to face terrified civilians. Instead, they encountered prepared defensive positions at every turn. Windows that looked empty suddenly blazed with weapon fire. Streets that seemed clear were revealed to be killing zones with overlapping fields of fire. Every colonist knew their role. The baker who had served coffee that morning was now operating a heavy machine gun from his shop's basement. The school principal had become a sniper, picking off alien officers from hidden positions. Even teenagers helped by running ammunition and medical supplies through the tunnel system. The aliens were trapped in an impossible situation. They could not advance without taking heavy casualties, but they could not retreat without losing face. Meanwhile, more of their ships fell to the hidden orbital defenses. Jake Morrison received reports from all sectors of the colony. The humans were holding their positions and inflicting massive damage on the enemy. But he knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the Zephyrians realized they were not fighting a typical colonial militia. They were fighting humans who had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of attack. Humans who had turned their entire world into a weapon and were ready to use every advantage the planet could give them. The battle for New Haven had begun, and the Zephyrians were already losing. 3 days into the battle, Fleet Commander Vexstar realized he was facing something he had never encountered before. His fleet had been reduced to 140 ships, and his ground forces were trapped in a nightmare they could not escape. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. Every building was a fortress. Every street corner hid weapons. Even their children seemed to know exactly what to do when the shooting started. This was not a civilian population caught by surprise. This was an entire military force disguised. As a colony sub-commander Krellinax entered the bridge with the latest casualty reports. His uniform was stained with sweat, and his hands shook slightly as he handed over the datapad. "Sir, we've lost 60 ships and over half our ground forces," he said quietly. "The troops that are still alive are requesting immediate extraction." Vexstar read the reports with growing anger. Unit after unit had been destroyed or cut off. The humans used tunnels to appear behind his forces, attack, and then disappear again. His warriors, trained to fight in open battle, were helpless against this type of warfare. "No retreat," Vexstar said firmly. "Send more dropships. We will overwhelm them with numbers. Sir, with respect, we're not fighting numbers. We're fighting the planet itself." It was true, and Vexstar knew it. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned a dead world into a living weapon that fought alongside them. Earthquakes struck at exactly the right moments to disrupt his attacks. Volcanic vents redirected superheated gas into his landing zones. Even the weather seemed to be working against him. On the surface, Ryan Clark moved through the tunnel system, checking on defensive positions throughout the colony. The underground passages allowed rapid movement without exposing his people to orbital bombardment. Every few hundred meters, he found groups of colonists holding key positions at Checkpoint 7. He found Maria Santos and her family defending a crucial intersection. Maria had been a teacher before the attack. Now she operated a heavy weapon, while her teenage son, Pete, carried ammunition, and her daughter Kate worked the communications equipment. "How are we doing here?" Ryan asked as he crawled into their bunker. "They tried to advance down Commerce Street an hour ago," Maria replied, not taking her eyes off her weapon sights. Pete's homemade explosive stopped them cold. Ryan looked at the boy with surprise. Pete was only 16, but he had rigged an improvised mine system using supplies from the school's chemistry lab. "Good work, son. Just doing my part," Pete said with a grin. These aliens picked the wrong planet to mess with. Throughout the colony, similar scenes played out dozens of times. Ordinary people had become deadly fighters through years of preparation and training. But more than that, they were fighting for their home. Every street, every building, every rock formation was familiar territory that they would not give up. Dr. Amanda Brooks worked tirelessly in her underground laboratory, developing new biological weapons. The modified bacteria were working better than expected. Zephyrian environmental suits were failing at an alarming rate, forcing the aliens to retreat to their ships for medical treatment. "Jake, you need to see this." Amanda called over the communication system. Jake Morrison made his way through the tunnels to the science center. Amanda was studying samples taken from captured alien equipment. Her microscope displayed images of the bacterial invasion in progress. "The organisms are adapting faster than I calculated," she explained. "They're learning to penetrate different types of Zephyrian technology. Within another day or two, their ground forces won't be able to operate on the surface at all." Jake nodded grimly. It was a terrible weapon, but the aliens had chosen to attack innocent people. What about their ships? working on it. If we can get the bacteria into their ventilation systems, the entire fleet could be compromised. Above ground, the battle continued with devastating intensity. Lisa Grant coordinated the hidden weapon systems from her command bunker deep in the mountain. Every gun battery was connected to a central targeting computer that used the planet's magnetic field to confuse enemy sensors. Railgun Battery 12, you have incoming fighter craft, she announced over the tactical network. Response came immediately. A section of what looked like solid rock face split open, revealing a massive electromagnetic cannon. The weapon fired a projectile at incredible speed, destroying 2 Zephyrian fighters. Before disappearing back into its hidden position, the aliens could not understand how the humans were doing it. Their weapons appeared from nowhere, fired with deadly accuracy, and then vanished again. Every time they thought they had found all the defensive positions, new ones revealed themselves. Captain Sam Rodriguez received a priority message from the orbital defense platforms. Sam, we're detecting movement in the outer system. Looks like human ships approaching. Jake was called to the command center immediately. The tactical display showed a new fleet of contacts moving toward the planet. At first, he worried it might be Zephyrian reinforcements. Then the identification codes came through. It's the 4th Colonial Fleet, Sam announced with relief. 48 ships under Admiral Patricia Stone. The news spread through the colony like wildfire. Help was coming. But Jake realized something that filled him with even more satisfaction. The rescue fleet would not find a colony under siege. They would find a victory in progress. On the Crimson Talon, Vextar received the same sensor readings. Human reinforcements were 6 hours away. He had to make a decision that would determine the fate of his fleet and possibly his entire career. Sir, we could withdraw now, Subcommander Krelinax suggested carefully. Regroup and attack with a larger force. No, Vextar said through clenched teeth. We finish this now. All ships prepare for final orbital bombardment. Reduce the entire colony to rubble. It was his last desperate attempt to salvage something from the disaster. If he could not capture the colony, he would at least destroy it completely. But even this plan was doomed to fail. As the Zephyrian ships moved into bombardment formation, the planet's hidden defenses revealed their final surprise. Gun positions that had remained concealed throughout the battle suddenly opened fire from locations no one had suspected. The valley walls themselves split open to reveal massive weapon installations built directly into the mountain faces. Railgun batteries larger than anything the aliens had seen before began firing synchronized volleys. The magnetic field generators that had been disguised as mining equipment revealed their true purpose, creating targeting disruption on a scale that made accurate return fire impossible. Lisa Grant watched from her control room as 20 years of planning came to fruition. Phase 4 activated. All primary batteries are now online. The Zephyrian fleet found itself trapped in a crossfire from weapons they had never detected. Ships that had survived 3 days of battle were destroyed in minutes by the overwhelming firepower suddenly brought to bear against them. Fleet. Commander Vextar realized with growing horror that he had not been fighting a colony's defenses. He had been fighting a carefully planned military installation designed specifically to destroy large fleets. Everything from the planet's selection to the colonists' training had been part of an elaborate trap. All ships emergency withdrawal. He ordered, but it was too late. The human weapons had been positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that made escape nearly impossible. As Admiral Stone's fleet arrived in the outer system, they found the Zephyrian 3rd Assault Fleet in complete disarray. Less than 50 ships remained operational, and those were fleeing in panic from weapons they could not locate or effectively target. The siege of New Haven was ending, but not the way anyone had expected. A colony built to survive anything had done more than just survive. It had won a victory that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Admiral Patricia Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Liberty, staring at her tactical display in amazement. When her fleet had received the distress call from New Haven, she expected to find a colony under siege, fighting desperately for survival. Instead, she was watching the complete destruction of the Zephyrian Third Assault Fleet. Less than 40 alien ships remained operational, and those were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. The debris field around Kepler 442c told the story of one of the most one-sided battles in military history. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the colony," reported her communications officer. "Put it through." Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but satisfied, standing in what was clearly an underground command center. Behind him, colonists worked at control stations with the efficiency of a professional. "Military crew. Admiral Stone, welcome to New Haven," Jake said with a slight smile. "As you can see, we've been keeping busy. Mr. Morrison, I have to admit, this is not what we expected to find. Our intelligence reports indicated you were facing overwhelming odds." "We were," Jake replied, "but we've spent 5 years preparing for this exact scenario. The Zephyrians made the mistake of attacking a human colony built specifically to survive anything they could throw at us." Admiral Stone looked at her tactical officer, who was studying the sensor readings from the battle. "Zone, sir, I'm detecting weapon signatures unlike anything in our database. The colonists were using the planet's magnetic field to accelerate projectiles to incredible velocities." Jake nodded. "Lisa Grant, our chief engineer, developed most of the defensive systems. She'd be happy to share the technical details with your people." "What about prisoners?" the Admiral asked. "We have Fleet Commander Vexstar and about 24 of his senior officers. The rest of their ground forces didn't survive our biological defenses." The transmission ended, and Admiral Stone ordered her fleet to take standard orbit around the planet. As her ships moved into position, she could see the true extent of what the colonists had accomplished. The entire valley was revealed to be a massive fortress with weapon positions built into every mountain face and defensive systems that defied conventional military thinking. On the surface, the people of New Haven emerged from their bunkers and tunnels to celebrate their victory. Children who had spent 6 days underground laughed and played in the sunlight. Adults who had fought like soldiers embraced their families and began the work of cleaning up the battle damage. Ryan Clark walked through the main settlement, checking on his people and assessing the aftermath. The colony had taken some damage from the orbital bombardment, but nothing critical. The Zephyrians had spent most of their time shooting at decoys and fake installations. He found Dr. Amanda Brooks in the medical center, treating the few human casualties from the battle. Most of the injuries were minor, cuts and bruises from moving through the tunnels during the fighting. "How many did we lose?" Ryan asked. 3 killed, 17 wounded, Amanda replied. "Considering what we faced, it's almost miraculous." Ryan nodded grimly. Every life lost was a tragedy, but they had faced a fleet of 200 warships and survived almost intact. It was a victory beyond anything they had dared hope for. Doc in the main conference room. Jake Morrison sat across from Fleet. Commander Vexstar. The alien officer was in restraints, his dark blue skin pale with shock and defeat. His 4 eyes stared at Jake with a mixture of hatred and confused respect. "I don't understand," Vexstar said finally. "Our intelligence showed a civilian colony with minimal defenses. How did you hide such extensive military installations?" Jake leaned back in his chair. "We didn't hide them. We built them. Every colonist who came here knew what we were really creating. New Haven wasn't just a place to live. It was a test." "A test of what?" "A test of whether humans could turn any world, no matter how hostile, into an impregnable fortress. Whether we could build a colony that could survive anything an enemy could throw at us. Vextar's expression grew thoughtful. You planned this from the beginning. The entire colony was a military experiment. Not just military, Jake corrected. We had to make it a real home for real people. Families live here. Children go to school. Here, we grow our own food and build our own futures. But yes, we also made sure we could defend it all. The alien commander was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. In 20 years of conquest, I have never seen anything like this. Your people fought with a coordination that suggests years of preparation. Every person in this colony is a volunteer, Jake explained. We came here knowing we might face exactly this situation. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, shopkeepers, all of them trained for combat. All of them committed to defending their home. Captain Sam Rodriguez entered the room, carrying a datapad with the final battle statistics. He handed it to Jake, who glanced at the numbers before setting it aside. Commander Vextar, your fleet lost 163 ships. Over 90% of your ground forces are dead. Your empire sent you here to make an example of us, but you've become the example instead. The Zephyrian's 4 eyes closed briefly. What will you do with the survivors? That depends on your empire, Jake replied. We're not conquerors. We just want to be left alone to build our lives in peace. But if your people keep attacking human colonies, they'll find more surprises waiting for them. 3 days later, a Zephyrian diplomatic ship arrived under a flag of truce. Admiral Vexmore himself came to negotiate the release of the prisoners and discuss the implications of the battle. The old Zephyrian admiral sat in the same conference. Room where Vextar had been questioned. His pale skin and sharp eyes showed the wisdom of decades of military experience. He studied Jake Morrison with obvious interest. You have given my empire much to think about, Admiral Vexmore said. We underestimated your species badly. Most people do, Jake replied. We're not the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. But we're very good at adapting to situations and finding ways to survive. This colony is more than survival. This is a demonstration of military genius. Jake shook his head. This is a demonstration of what humans do when they have time to prepare and a reason to fight. Every person here has family, friends, a life they're willing to defend. Admiral Vexmore was quiet for several minutes, clearly thinking through the political implications. The High Command believed humans were a minor threat. Your victory here will change that assessment. Good, Jake said firmly. Maybe it will prevent future attacks on human colonies. The negotiations took 2 days. In the end, the Zephyrians agreed to a prisoner exchange and a temporary ceasefire, while both governments discussed new diplomatic arrangements. Admiral Vexmore left with a complete recording of the battle and a clear understanding that humans were not the easy targets his empire had believed them to be. News of the new haven. Victory spread across human space within days. Other colonies began implementing similar defensive strategies, using the planet's own environment as part of their protection. The victory had shown that humans could not only survive alien attacks, but win decisively against overwhelming odds. Lisa Grant found herself promoted to Colonial Defense Chief, responsible for sharing New Haven's defensive innovations with other human settlements. Her engineering designs were studied and copied throughout human space, turning ordinary colonies into hidden fortresses. Dr. Amanda Brooks was recruited by the Colonial Medical Service to develop biological defenses for other worlds. Her work during the siege had proven that human adaptability extended beyond just building weapons. It included understanding and exploiting alien weaknesses. Ryan Clark became the new head of colonial security, training civilian populations in the tactics that had proven so effective against the Zephyrians. His motto became famous throughout human space: every citizen a soldier, every home a fortress. A year after the battle, Jake Morrison stood in the same office where he had watched the Zephyrian fleet arrive. The red sky of Kepler 442c still howled with toxic winds, but the colony below had grown larger and stronger. New families had arrived, drawn by the promise of a place where humans could build something that would last. The memorial park in the center of New Haven honored 3 colonists who had died defending their home. But it also celebrated something larger, the proof that humans could turn any world, no matter how hostile, into a place worth defending. Jake received regular reports from other colonies that had implemented New Haven's defensive strategies. None had faced attacks yet, but word was spreading throughout the galaxy that human colonies were no longer easy targets. The victory at New Haven had changed more than just one battle. It had changed how the galaxy saw humanity. No longer were they viewed as a weak, primitive species ripe for conquest. They were recognized as a people who could turn disadvantages into advantages, who could survive anything, and who would fight with a determination that made them more dangerous than their technology suggested. The Zephyrian Empire had learned a hard lesson: never underestimate humans who have had time to prepare. It was a lesson that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. As Jake watched the sunset paint the toxic sky in shades of red and gold, he smiled. New Haven had sucks,